called ChatGPT Health. ChatGPT Health is very much focused on the patient who's uploading that information of their medical history. And as a result, it's asking the artificial intelligence to interpret that. I'm sure you're going to start seeing this, if you haven't already started seeing this, where patients are coming and saying that, you know what, this is my symptoms, and ChatGPT is telling me this is the disease that I have, or this is the problem that I have. I just need you to write a prescription for me. So if only every person that went to OpenAI could become a doctor within 30 seconds, our lives would be that much more easier. But you guys have actually spent the time to do it, and I would not trust an AI platform to give me any medical advice. I would verify information, but not be my primary source of healthcare information. Another key takeaway from today, and I know some people are guilty of it. Some organizations we work with are using it, and guilty is a bit of a strong word. But if you're using a Gmail account as your primary email account in your practice, it is a risk, because again, it's a free platform. And if it's a free platform, it's not been given to you out of the goodness of the corporation's heart. It's been given to you because it's learning information from you. It's raising a certain number of users, and as a result, it's becoming valuable to advertisers. Now, if you use Gmail, you will start seeing adverts within your email, and it's starting to look as if it's an email that has popped in there. It is signified as an ad, but Google is using that information to start advertising. The other part that I mentioned earlier is ChatGPT is investigating or is launching advertising. Now, they've said that they're not going to use what your chats are as an advertising mechanism, but they are going to use some information to bring out what you're searching for. There's no point if you're searching for a recipe, for example, and it's going to give you power tools or gardening information. It is going to be relevant to what you're searching for. So as a result, they will know a bit of information. So be aware of it. We're not going to touch too much more on AI. I'm going to go on to the issue around cybersecurity. Now, Ryan's mentioned a little bit earlier, we as South Africans are very, very familiar with what is on our screen at the moment. So we either living behind high fences, gates, electric fences. We're living with an alarm system at home. We're living with an armed response that is nearby in our neighborhood. If we're not living with that, we're probably living in an estate that has all of that as a perimeter security, and we love the protection and the feeling of safety that we have. But we as South Africans are absolutely terrible in our digital environment and in our digital life. So if we think of the analogy of a home, the analogy of a fence and a gate, the first part of cybersecurity is to ensure that your perimeter is safe, to ensure that everything around that inside that wall is safe and secure. So from a cybersecurity, from an IT perspective, the tool that we use for that is a firewall. A firewall control. So if we look towards the bottom of the screen, this section here, a firewall, and I mentioned that I use AI in what I do. This diagram was created by an AI. As a result of this diagram created by AI, we start seeing some spelling errors coming through. So bear with me. I deliberately put that in, and I didn't fix that because I did want to show that. But coming back to the screen, a firewall will protect everything coming in. Your gate here protects everything that's sitting inside here. And only when someone rings the doorbell, or only when you recognize a person that's sitting at that gate, will you open that gate to come through. If someone tries to hop the fence, well, either you've got electric fencing or you've got some sort of alarm system in place to ensure that anyone trying to hop the fence is alerting the organization, is alerting you or alerting your household to a potential threat. A firewall acts in a very similar manner as well. But once you've seen the person that's sitting at your gate and on your camera, and you're allowing that person into your property, you are opening this network, or you're opening your property to that person coming in. The way we would allow email traffic to come into your environment is allowing this gate to be opened. So we need to live in a world where we are interconnected, and using tools like Zoom, using tools like Teams, and using things like email to communicate with. That door or that gate has to be opened to allow that traffic in and out. But once that traffic comes in to the front door, it is still, you should still protect your house by either having a burglar bar or having a trellis door or having some level of security at your front gate. And that is the second layer. Because yes, you're allowing something through your front door, but you need to make sure that that person or that email that you're allowing through to the front door is actually a legitimate email. So we use a product from a company called Mindcast that checks every single email coming in and out of our organization and coming in and out of our customers' organizations to ensure that it is a legitimate email coming through. So it's an additional layer of verification. So now that we've actually seen the person up front, or we've seen the person and we're expecting that person, the front door's open, they're going to come through. The same way we're going to see an email coming through that organization, it is going to be open to your house. But sometimes something is going to be coming through your front door and you're not expecting it, but it is cloaked enough that you would think it is a legitimate thing, a legitimate email or legitimate message that's coming through your front door that you've allowed through your front door. And that's where the third layer of security or defense comes in, which is your alarm system. Now, an antivirus is that alarm system. It is protecting that particular room, because in that room, you're going to have an infrared or you're going to have some sort of beam protecting access into that room. The same way you would allow an email through, but that email that looks legitimate, that has an antivirus, that has a virus attached to it or has something malicious to it, it needs to still trigger an alert. So the alarm system in place is an antivirus. There are two new technology, or there's two technologies around antivirus. The one technology is antivirus. You would traditionally go and purchase one. You would get updates every so often, and you would need to ensure that those updates are happening. So the antivirus is aware of any threats. It is a reactive tool, in the sense that if your antivirus is not patched, what will happen for a new virus coming in, it won't know what to do with it and will actually pass it as legitimate application or legitimate traffic. The next evolution of that now is something called an EDR, or endpoint detection and response. It actually locks down your room. It locks down the house to say that if threats come in, we're not going to let that threat go into another part of the house. We're just going to lock it down. So if a threat comes into your PC, we're going to lock that PC down, and we're not going to allow that threat to go any further. So those are the three layers that need to be in place to ensure that there's a level of security and protection. The layer one being the gate, the layer two being your email security, and layer three being your antivirus or endpoint detection and response. In our physical world, it's your fence and your front gate. It's your trellis door and burglar bars, which is layer two, and layer three being your armed response, your N4 security or Marshall security or Blue security, whichever security company that you have. But all of these tools are all fantastic if they are activated and if they're all working together. If we don't lock the front door, if we leave the burglar bars open or the front gate open because we are just careless or because we are not trained, none of the protection that we've put in place is going to work. So it's the same way in the digital environment. If you don't do a level of training for your users, you are keeping yourself vulnerable. We need to ensure that the users are trained to lock the front door, to close the gates behind them, to arm the alarm system. We need to ensure your users don't let bad emails through. Even if it has come through via technology, just be aware of it. So we need to actively ensure that the users are being trained. The idea behind it is to ensure that we have these overlapping defenses that all act in unison. And if one of them should fail, another one should pick up. We can't have just one firewall and think that we're all protected. We can't have antivirus and think that we're protected. The same way we wouldn't do that in our homes. So another thing that I wanted to just touch on here, there are different types of scams. So the difference between fraud is basically exploiting a system to steal information or steal money. A scam is exploiting the person to steal money or to steal information. So those are the key differences between a fraud and a scam. So a fraud is pretty calculated. The person is going out to steal your identity. They are actively uh, changing bank account details on invoices. They're opening bank accounts in your name. So the identity theft is when you're when someone's got your ID number, someone's got your home address, they're going to go to a bank and say, "This is my ID, this is my home address. Please, can I go out and give me a loan for, whatever 100,000 rand or whatever it is, or open up a cell phone account and take a phone." And it's all linked to your identity. It's not you doing it. It is someone pretending to be you to do that. So there are tools that you should be doing, or tools that you should be using, and platforms that you should be looking at to ensure that identity theft does not impact you in any way. Banking fraud is something similar, where they are opening up bank accounts in your name and stealing the cash out of there, or they're opening bank accounts to get deposits from like SASSA grants and things like that. Invoice fraud is when there's an interception between your email system and your supplier's email system or your patient's email system. So if you are sending an email out with bank account details at the bottom of it, if your email has been compromised, those invoice details are being edited to include the fraudster's bank account details, and money's being deposited into the wrong place. There are many issues. It's gone to a legal standpoint where a very well-known law firm called ENS was involved in a conveyancing and transfer of a property issue. Emails were intercepted and money went into the wrong account. The buyer was left out of pocket. The sale didn't go through, and the reputation of the law firm was kind of muddied a little bit. But eventually, through appeal, it's come right. So another part of fraud that I just wanted to touch on. Sorry, before going into that, SIM swapping is also quite a well-known issue in South Africa, more well-known than say the US or in Europe, where syndicates working with the cell phone companies swap your cell phone number on a SIM card to another SIM card, which means that your one-time passwords get sent to a different device because your actual cell phone number has been hijacked. Another fraud, which I was recently talking to a friend of mine who's an accountant, and he does work with a lot of medical practices and other types of organizations. He had a phone call from the wife of his friend, who's a doctor. The wife was kind of complaining to him, and I suppose some wives do this, but the wife was saying, "We just don't have enough money. I'm not seeing things come together. My husband's working so hard. I'd like to go on holiday. We just don't have anything in the bank account, and something's just not adding up here." The doctor had a thriving practice. It was 2 or 3 locations. They lived a fairly normal life. It was a decent life, but not over the top from what a thriving, busy practice should be. So my friend decided the accountant decided to investigate what was going on in the practice. What he found out was that the receptionist who was tasked with gathering the payments from the patients as they were leaving wasn't stealing the cash, because most people don't pay doctors or don't pay for anything in cash. I personally haven't carried my wallet on me for many years now because everything has been tagged on my watch. And as a result, the receptionist had registered a different credit card machine in her name, in a fake name of the practice, but that one, a credit card machine that she had control over and a bank account that she had control over. So as every patient was coming through and was paying, if I go visit a doctor, I don't know if a Yoko machine is the right machine, or a Nedbank machine, or a Standard Bank machine is the right machine. All I'm going to do is I'm going to pay, tap my watch, and I'm on my way. I've paid for the consult, but the receptionist was actually keeping that money, and she was living the lifestyle that the doctor should have been living. So the fancy holidays and the expensive cars. The easy way of mitigating this that came out of my conversation with my friend, the accountant, was that going forward, what they did was the doctor kept a record of every single patient that he saw, a quantity of patient that he saw. So if he saw 15 patients in a day, he would then go back to the receptionist, who also kept a tally of the number of patients that went through her environment. And if the two numbers matched up, and the bank account matched up to what was expected, that was one way that of control. So it is important to ensure that you don't fall victim to fraud, to ensure that your accounting and your books are are managed, that your bank account is visible, and what you're expecting in there is the right thing. I mentioned a scam, and touching on what a scam is. There are many types of scams that are going around. Phishing is one of them, where information is sought out from an email that comes through. So these are fake emails that are designed to steal your login credentials. Those login credentials could be for your Gmail account. I mentioned invoice fraud earlier. It's because your credentials are available to be bought on the dark web. And I'm going to touch on what the dark web is in the next slide. But that information is readily sold and bought for cents for cents, because it's so prevalent. Using your access into your email, and that's how the invoice fraud happens. So the phishing is where there's an active attack on your account. There's an active attack into your credentials, and a phishing email does that. There are other types of phishings. So there's smishing, which is SMS fraud that comes through. And I'm sure a number of you have gone through a process of receiving an SMS to say that you've ordered your package from Temu or Shein, and you've got to pay customs, and you're scratching your head and you're thinking, oh, I didn't really order that package from Temu, but let me just click on that link and pay this 21 Rand and see what package arrives. That's not looking for the payment at all. It's actually looking for your credit card information. So that is smishing. Vishing is another one that pops through. Vishing is your voice. So someone actually calling you and asking for credentials. So it could be an urgent phone call that you receive from your bank to say there's a fraudulent activity going on. The person that's calling you is going to stop it, but in order to stop it, they need your OTP, your one-time password. So just be aware of those sort of scams that come through. There's also WhatsApp hijacking that's happened. A friend of mine had her WhatsApp number hijacked by a fraudster because she gave over the passcode, the authentication code. So never give over your codes for any reason. So never give over your passwords, never give over your OTPs, never give over anything that is going to expose who you are. Not so much in South Africa, where we have tech support scams. We do have some online shopping scams, fake websites. I had an issue I came across an issue rather, where a person that I'm close to had gone ahead and paid for a beanbag. The sale had happened, or the offer to purchase had happened via a closed WhatsApp group, and there was a reliance on the verification of who was on that WhatsApp group. So we need to, if you don't know the person, if you see something that's too good to be true, if you can't verify it, don't fall victim to that level of scamming. Pig butchering, it's a terrible term. I'm not a fan. But basically, what it means is someone may fall victim or lured into a false relationship. It could be a good-looking woman or good-looking man who is looking for affection from a lonely other person, and um, having a relationship or purporting to have a relationship, creating a fake online relationship. But in order to do that, they gain the person's trust. In order to gain the person's trust, they would then start transacting by saying, you know what, I've actually made so much money, for example, on this Bitcoin platform. You can see the numbers have gone up, or I've made so much money on this currency exchange platform. You know what, you should get in on this. And once the money starts flowing through, it doesn't stop until your bank accounts have been completely drained out, or until the victim's bank account's been drained out. So the idea of pig butchering is the fattening until the relationship is very unceremoniously cut off. So just be aware of these things in your business. Be aware of these things in your environment, in your personal environment. They do all have an impact on your income and impact on your reputation. So I mentioned the dark web a little bit earlier. The dark web is not a place that is separate to the internet. We may have seen this in TV shows, we may have seen this in movies where hackers talk about the dark web. The dark web is very much a place that is easily accessible, and it's all in an interconnected world. So every network that we are connected to can potentially go to the dark web. It's just a method of going to that. There's three types of web. There's the open web, there's the deep web, and there's the dark web. And the difference between all of this is really the accessibility. So open web is when you go to Google or news.google.com, and you would ask for it would present you with information about the latest news based on your location or based on your IP address. You would click on a link and it would go to, say, BizTech or My Broadband, or a portal that has medical information that is freely available. That is, we're all aware of that. The deep web is somewhere that would need a level of access, a level of credentials. So think about your banking platform. Think about your there's banking, there's your home affairs platform where you've got your ID information. It's a government platform. Think about places like News 24 that's behind a paywall. Those are actually behind a level of security and credential that you would need to get onto. The dark web is still connected to the internet. It's still accessible by the internet, but it is intentionally hidden. You would need a tool like something called Tor, an application that resides on your device that allows you to anonymize your internet traffic and therefore access a part of the internet that is not freely accessible. Tor is not a paid-for product. It is very much, you could go down and download it from the website. It's not supposed to be used for a bad intent, but it is there. It's supposed to. It was designed initially to anonymize. I believe it was designed by the National Security Agency in the US to anonymize their browsing and their traffic that goes on the internet. So the dark web is freely accessible, not easily accessible. It's not very difficult though, but it's not easily accessible. But because it anonymizes all the traffic that's on there, it allows for illicit things to happen, illicit activities to take place. So the information that I was mentioning earlier that is stolen is listed on the dark web for sale. On the dark web, you can very easily order a hit, order drugs, order weapons, or order things that you can't just buy on Takealot or Amazon. So the dark web allows for this to these transactions to happen simply because it's anonymous. You can't see where that transaction is going. So Um, One of the things that we recommend for users and for just general public is to ensure and understand what information of yours is sitting on the dark web, on the breaches that have happened through various platforms. The hackers have taken this information and they want to monetize it. How do we know what information of ours is sitting there? So there are different ways and means of doing that. The one way, if you want to do it as once-off check, is if you go to our website, gzd.co.za, and if you click on freebies, there's a link underneath there that says, "Have I been pwned?" Pwned meaning PWNED. What that means is you put your cell phone number, you put your email address. You don't have to put anything that you're not comfortable putting, but that verifies on a database as to what information is visible on the dark web. In the next slide, I'll show you information of mine that's visible on the dark web. But that's as a once-off. What we recommend is to constantly have a check. So because this information is getting updated on a daily basis by various sources. So let's ensure that we are looking at this platform, or we're looking at information that's coming out of the dark web on a much more regular basis. So why would we want to know what is on the dark web that is ours? It's so that we can start taking steps or actions to ensure if it is a login for Takealot that's been breached, we can go and change our login details for Takealot. If it's the same password that you're using for Takealot, we would definitely say, please don't use the same password for Takealot, because, sorry, don't use the same password across multiple platforms, because if Takealot gets breached, then everything gets breached potentially. So having a constant monitor or constant view of what is being sold, what information of yours is being sold on the dark web, is something that we would recommend. So let's see what the dark web is all about, or what information of mine is visible on the dark web. So going onto a website, like I mentioned earlier, if you went to gzd.co.za, clicked on freebies, it gives you access to Have I Been Pwned. I put in my credentials and I'm based in Durban. Sequeni municipality got breached in 2016 and everyone's credentials got leaked. Basically, date of birth, email addresses, physical addresses, utility bills, passwords, phone numbers, IDs, everything that could be built up to create a false persona. Ster-Kinekor is almost, well, there isn't one anymore in Durban, but Ster-Kinekor was breached. I had a Ster-Kinekor account. The master deeds, if you ever own property and transacted on property, that information sits in master deeds, and that information was breached in 2017, so 9 years ago. So this is information of mine that is personally available on the dark web. What I should do, or what I need to do, is ensure that my passwords are unique, and there are tools available, and I'm going to mention those tools just now, that those tools are that the passwords are unique, that I have multi-factor authentication, and I'll explain what multi-factor authentication is, and that I ensure that I constantly look out there so that if something gets breached, I go back and make that change in my password. But having all this information that is out there and visible, what good is it? I'm going to show you some screenshots, and if we have a bit of time towards the end of the presentation, I can show you the actual live website. But I'm going to show you a screenshot of a website called Shodan. Shodan is it's freely available. You can go to shodan.io, and what I've done in there is did a search for the city of Durban. What this does, if you think about what Google does for websites, so if you're searching for something, Google indexes websites and presents a result to you when you search for something. In Shodan's instance, it's actually searching for open means or open ways of getting into a specific address or specific location. So everything in the internet is connected. Everything's unique on the internet. It has something called an IP address. Without getting too technical, every device that's connected to the internet has a unique number. And as you see on the screen there, it's this number that sits here, 41.162.73.83. That tells my internet browser where to go. And where I go, it also has a method of presenting this information out there. So I'll give you an example. We, about 18 months ago, started engaging with a petrol station, a business that is running as a petrol station. The owner of the business was very pedantic about his security. And I actually went there and I said to him, I said, why are you so pedantic about your security? He said, I have to be. It's a petrol station. We've got cash business. It's 24/7 operation. I need to make sure that we're safe and secure. I said, but what are you trying to protect yourself from? He says, trying to protect myself from someone coming in and identifying when the cash in transit's happening, when the cash ups are happening, and things like that. And I said to him, I said to him, but you are very pedantic about this, but your CCTV feed is very publicly available. And all they need is some of that information that you've got that was breached, that I showed in the previous slides, your password, your name. And understanding where you are, it's very easy to put a few things together. Those things can be put together if there's an intentional act of trying to find out what's going on in a particular organization, or intentional act to try and breach into a particular organization. So in this instance, his CCTV feed or his CCTV was very much exposed to the internet. And I said to him, because your credentials are available on the dark web, and because your internet connection is exposed, it doesn't have a firewall, and your password is pretty much exposed on the internet. Anyone that wants to rob your business and rob your petrol station doesn't actually have to stand outside your petrol station. They don't have to park in a car and see what time CIT is coming. All they have to do is get into your CCTV system, and everything that you see on your phone that you think you are monitoring your staff on, they can see. So you've got your cameras in the right places to over the cash points, in your cash up office, where the CIT is coming. You've got all of that information, all the camera information coming out, but being freely exposed onto the internet. So the next slide shows you information that I searched on for within Durban and within a particular camera system called Hikvision. It's very popular. Hikvisions are available throughout, and most businesses and homes have Hikvision or Dahua or something like that. But because it's such an open standard, I could see that the 2023 cameras. Sorry, bear with me. The 2023 cameras that are exposing that information onto the internet quite openly. All I needed to do was click on one of these links, and it popped me open a page that was a login page for that camera system. I could guess the username because there's only two parts to this. There are only two parts for allowing me access onto this platform. It's a username and a password. I could guess the username, being admin, or I could research that. If the installer hadn't changed the credentials in any way, I'd very easily be able to get into this camera feed from the internet. So not having the right awareness in place is quite key to understand the risk that you are facing. You may have CCTV. I've been to doctor's rooms where he had his CCTV feed of his house on a camera that was behind the patients, just to ensure that he could see who was going in and out of his property. If he could see it in his rooms, it could more than likely be seen outside, because more than likely he doesn't have a firewall at home, or it's going into a platform that is not very safely protected. So I want to touch on the next slide the different types of things, and this is why training is quite key. This was based out of a report or analysis of what causes breaches to happen. So it's weak passwords, password being like password 123 or even the word password being that password. So make sure your passwords are not weak. It is the phishing attacks that come in. Misconfigured systems. You may have, what I've showed you in the previous 3 slides was a misconfigured system that was allowing me access and visibility into a CCTV feed that I probably shouldn't have had access to. The other parts of it, which are quite key for a practice that has interconnected systems, so improper use of privileged access, meaning that your receptionist has access using admin credentials onto your Discovery platform or Netcare platform and things like that. And as a result, you wouldn't give access to your bank account to your receptionist or accountant. Don't give access to other platforms that you don't want users to have access to. The failure to install security updates, it's quite key because most machines that we come across in our practices that we initially engage with is that the security patches are not up to date. So we need to ensure that the security patches are there. The other point about your data and data loss, because data is key, is the unintentional data deletion. So if your receptionist or if someone in your admin team is very upset with you, they would go out and wipe out all this data and cause a hassle in your organization and in your practice. So just make sure that your information is backed up. And that's one of the things that we will see as a way of protecting yourself. So I mentioned phishing. It's one of the key parts of getting breaches into your organization or into your environment or into your mail account. These are some of the steps that you need to look at to ensure that you don't fall victim of it. I personally had an issue where I was very, very close to depositing money into, it was tax season, into what I thought was going to be SARS's bank account. And when my deadline for payment was Saturday. And then Saturday morning, house was quiet. I woke up and I said, look, let me do some of my admin work. I logged into my email. I opened up the attachment and it said it wasn't a huge amount. I needed to pay 5,000 or 6,000 rand to tax. I said, okay, well, sounds okay. It's better than I expected. Let me pay this 5,000 or 6,000 rand. The letter looked exactly like it came from SARS. The email looked like it came from SARS. I don't have any excuse other than I don't have any excuse for how far it actually got. I didn't do the deposit, but the reason why I stopped the deposit was when I looked at my banking platform, and typically with the government, a well-known account or business, those are accredited bank accounts. So you don't actually have to put in bank account details. You can just say, I'm looking for SARS, and SARS comes up and you do the payment. But this letter had 3 bank accounts on there, and those 3 bank accounts didn't tie up with my bank that I use. So I went and not thinking about it. I went into the platform to start creating the process of doing the payment. And I thought, but hang on a second. SARS would have access, would have bank accounts with every single bank. Why don't they have it with my bank? And that's when I started digging and looking and seeing some of the issues within the actual email, which was hidden very well, that made it a phishing email or made it a fraudulent email. So check the sender's email address, be wary of emails urging immediate action. So in this instance, it was urging me to make a payment because it's tax. Don't click on links, don't download any files or attachments. The reason why I was comfortable doing that, I do have EDR, I do have all the other tools in place that would theoretically help me. For some reason that this got through. So in this instance, there wasn't poor grammar or spelling mistakes in the email. It was actually the wrong bank account that raised the awareness for me. So make sure before you make a payment that you are making the payment to the right place, or that you are acting on the email in the correct manner. If it's asking you for something, make sure you trust where it's coming from. And even if you think that you trust where it's coming from, pick up the phone and ask the person that sent you the email to ensure that, hang on, did you send me this email to make this payment? Did you send me this email with a file attachment? Did you send me this email that is linking me to a Dropbox account or a OneDrive account? It's that simple phone call will actually could potentially save you quite a bit of pain down the line. How do you protect yourself? So the key thing is to ensure that your passwords are strong. If you're using an Apple device, if you have an iPhone, if you have a Mac, Apple will have something in there called iCloud Keychain. Please make sure that you do use your iCloud Keychain. If you're not on a Mac, if you're in a Windows environment, there are other tools that I'll list the links to shortly. But make sure that your passwords are unique and make sure that your passwords are long. If someone asks me what my password is to any platform, whether it's Amazon, Takealot, or anything like that, I don't know those details. I have a master password that lets me into the password manager. And as a result, then I can use those credentials to authenticate myself on different platforms. Two-factor authentication just means that there's another way of authenticating. So it's not just a password, but it's a password plus a unique changing character, a digit. So it could be, I don't like SMS OTPs because SMSs can be intercepted. I mentioned smishing earlier. I mentioned SIM swaps earlier. So SMSs can be manipulated. But using a password manager allows you to generate that unique password to get into the platform as well. Make sure your software is up to date. Make sure that you're suspicious of email and links. And the last point is really, really key. It is to back up your data regularly, because if someone gets into your machine and ransoms that machine, the only way to get your information back without costing an arm and a leg is to restore from a backup. There's a new technology coming in. It's called passkeys. Those passkeys are basically an authentication to your device. Once you've authenticated to that device, the platform that you're using, whether it's Google or Apple or Microsoft, uses that device to authenticate who you are. So it's no longer reliant on a third party or anything like that. So definitely make use of passkeys where you can. There is a strong movement towards passkeys. Apple, Microsoft, and Google are the early adoptees, and they're pushing forward on ensuring that passkeys become a standard to be used. So make sure that you use it. There's a definite heightened level of security. It is better than two-factor authentication. What can you do to protect yourselves or protect your practice? Number one is backup training. Don't use illegal websites or torrent sites to download your movies and TV and etc. onto a device that you use for work as well. Monitor and secure your internet. So backups listed there. In fact, backups listed a third time. So backup being, you have to ensure that you back up. It's usually 3-to-1 principle. Three different types of backup on two different types. Three backups on two different types of media, and at least one offsite. So remember that. Don't just have one copy of a backup. Have it done at least 3 times. All the other things that I've mentioned before. The 11th point is buy a domain. It's not very expensive. It's a few $100 a year to buy a domain that's in your practice's name. Subscribe to a platform like Microsoft 365. It is much more robust. It is much more well-known. And you should be able to rely on a better level of security. You are now subscribing to a platform. You should have a better level of security than a consumer would have, let's say, a Gmail account or Outlook.com account or Live.com account. A couple useful or few useful resources. The slides can be shared. If you go back to the recording, this information can be looked at. Use different tools like Cloudflare. It protects your internet at home. It doesn't replace a firewall. It does give you a little bit of extra protection, but do use that. The SA Fraud Prevention Service, it's a reporting mechanism. Check your credit history regularly. I picked up on my personal credit history that someone had tried to open someone had opened an account and registered an address for me in a Shawi. And I have nothing bad to say about anyone in a Shawi, but I've never been to a Shawi. So there was no reason why I should have an address in a Shawi. And after fighting with TransUnion, eventually got that record released or that information released from my credit record. Password manager I've mentioned, and there's a free tool through a company called Bitwarden. I don't really recommend the free tool. I would recommend subscribing to it. I think it's about $3. It protects your family or multiple users. Just make sure that you are using it. go to our website, sign up for some information that comes through on the website, and it's all there. That's me done. My contact details are here. If you would like to book some time, if you would like us to have a consultation, a discovery call, click on the QR code. We're happy to have a quick chat. Ryan, sorry, I haven't looked at questions. So I don't know if there's any questions or any comments or anything like that.
Well, firstly, thank you, Rajesh, that you had me fixed. Some of those
Thanks,
mistakes
man.
I know that I've made, and I learned from you previously with regards to the passwords. So, yeah, we have a question here from Russell. He asked, "Is there any value in using a VPN? I've tried one, but it blocked just about everything or messages to me."
Yeah. So, I have this conversation with my daughter. She's at school and she's turned around. The school's blocked all internet access on the Wi-Fi. So I said to her, "How are you getting through?" She said, "No, I'm just using a VPN." So there's a lot of free VPNs that are out there. Definitely don't use a free one. I mentioned, if it's free, you are the product. The free platforms don't guarantee a level of security. So a VPN is used primarily to gain access into a secure network. In this instance, in the business world, I use a VPN to access something that is on our local network at our office, which is our servers and things like that. Don't use a VPN to pretend to get the Netflix catalog from America or from Europe or something like that. Rather, and don't do that on your work device. If you're going to do that on your home device that's kind of isolated, that you don't use for your banking and don't use for anything else. VPNs can tend to block traffic if it's not configured correctly. But if you have a VPN that's based on a firewall that's on your network, then there are more steps to configuring it than just downloading an application and moving forward. So there are different types of VPNs. If it's a corporate VPN, it's reliant on the network to gain access to messages. If it's a public free VPN, you're typically using it to get the Netflix access or download something from somewhere. So we can talk about it if Russell needs to talk about it.
Great. That's the only questions that we've received. I would like to say thanks to Brandon for pointing out that the QR code for the lineup, my mistake, wasn't working, so it was missing a hashtag. I have included the correct link there in the Q&A. I'll make sure that next week we have the correct QR code to access the lineup. You can just go onto webinars.dociohealth.co.za directly, and you can access the lineup. You can access the recordings, and you can access the bios of all the speakers in the series. Rajesh, thank you very much. It's now 7 o'clock,
Cool.
and I think everyone's looking forward to a glass of wine or some dinner or whatever we do in the evening. So thank you
I'm going
very
to
much.
enjoy the Cape Town sunshine. So yeah,
I'm
cheers,
sure you
guys. Thank
are.
you.
I'm sure you are. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.